The skies above Zaltor were heavy with shadows. Clouds streaked with silver lightning rolled over the jagged crystal mountains surrounding the imperial city. In the heart of the city, the Emperor's dragon rested in the grand hall of crystals. It was not dead, but neither was it alive in the way that the Empire had known for centuries. Its enormous body, a mixture of living tissue and gleaming metal, lay coiled in a cradle of ancient crystal. Each scale shimmered with faint energy, but the light in its eyes, the flame of its mind and spirit, had vanished. For generations, the dragon had been more than a creature. It had been the Empire's guide, protector, and symbol. Its roar had called armies to victory, and its wings had shielded the planet from meteoric storms. To see it silent and cold felt like watching the sun itself set forever. The Emperor, tall and stern, stood above the dragon on the highest balcony of the healing hall. His robes of silver thread glimmered in the faint light that managed to pierce the clouds. Beside him, a dozen of the Empire's most skilled healers whispered among themselves. They carried crystal wands that pulsed with energy, instruments capable of tuning the dragon's body and mind. But even their knowledge, accumulated over thousands of years, had failed. "This is impossible," one whispered. "Nothing we do can awaken it, perhaps? Its spirit has gone beyond reach." The Emperor said nothing. His eyes, dark and patient, never left the dragon. The silence stretched like a weight over the hall. Outside, citizens and soldiers had gathered to witness the last hope of their empire. Murmurs ran through the crowd, words of fear and despair, some even daring to suggest that the Empire's favor had ended. Then, a small group moved forward from the back of the hall. They were Terrans, humans brought to the Empire years ago, their small, unassuming bodies in contrast with the towering alien healers. They had been engineers, mechanics, builders. They were not warriors, nor were they scholars in the alien arts, yet their minds had a curious spark that few understood. Among them walked Daniel Ward. He was a man of middle age, quiet, with streaks of gray in his hair. Known as a father to many, he had a patient, deliberate way of moving and thinking that earned him a reputation as someone who could solve problems others could not. The Emperor noticed him first. "You are human," he said, his voice echoing in the hall. "What can you do that we cannot?" Daniel paused, looking up at the dragon. He did not bow. Instead, he stepped closer, his hand brushing lightly over his tool belt. "I don't know if I can fix it," he admitted. "But I know this, every living thing carries memory. Every living thing remembers who it is. Sometimes all it needs is a voice to call it home." The alien healers exchanged uneasy glances. Their knowledge was vast, their science ancient, yet they understood the audacity of a human speaking so calmly in the presence of a creature of legend. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Then speak, human. Show us." Daniel nodded and stepped forward. The dragon's massive head lifted slightly as if sensing movement, but the eyes remained dark. The hall went silent. Not a single breath was heard. The only sound was the faint hum of the crystal floor beneath their feet, resonating with the dragon's lingering energy. Daniel reached the edge of the crystal cradle. The air shimmered around him, charged with the dragon's dormant power. He took a deep breath and placed one hand gently on the creature's metallic scales. They were cool to the touch but not lifeless. A faint warmth pulsed beneath them, a memory of the life that once burned so brightly. He closed his eyes and listened, not with his ears but with something deeper. He felt sorrow, loneliness, and confusion, as though the dragon's spirit had wandered far away and could not find its way back. "You are not alone," he whispered, his voice soft and deliberate. "You are remembered. You are still needed. You still have a name?" Daniel leaned closer, feeling a connection that no alien could have imagined. He murmured the dragon's ancient name, a name that had been lost to almost everyone, even the Emperor. The word carried warmth, authority, and familiarity, flowing like a current through the dragon's dormant mind. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a flicker of golden light appeared in one of the dragon's eyes. The crowd gasped. Even the alien healers stepped back, their instruments trembling in their hands. Daniel continued to speak softly. "You have protected worlds, carried hope, and guided generations. You are not finished. Open your eyes, old one. We are here." Slowly, deliberately, the dragon lifted its massive head. Its scales shimmered brighter as a faint pulse of energy spread across its body. A low rumble began deep in its chest, vibrating through the hall like distant thunder. The energy of life long dormant began to return. The Emperor's eyes widened, Impossible, he muttered. A human. Awakened it with words? Daniel opened his eyes and looked at the Emperor. I did not awaken it. You never can. I only reminded it who it is. That was enough. The dragon's eyes focused, golden now, burning with clarity and intelligence. Its gaze swept over the hall, sensing the fear, the hope, the loyalty, and the despair. When it looked upon Daniel, it lingered longer than on anyone else. Recognition, gratitude. Something old and profound stirred between them. Outside, news of the dragon's awakening spread like wildfire. Citizens cheered, soldiers saluted, and even the clouds above seemed to part slightly, letting rays of sunlight illuminate the city. Humanity, often underestimated, had performed what the Empire's greatest minds could not, but Daniel knew that this was only the beginning. The dragon had woken, yes, but why had it fallen into such a deep slumber? And why had the human voice been the key? Questions hung in the air like sparks ready to ignite. As the dragon slowly rose from its cradle, stretching wings that spanned half the hall, a low, rumbling growl escaped its throat. It was not anger but awareness. It sensed change, the stirrings of distant powers moving across the stars. And it sensed Daniel, small, human, unarmed, yet somehow essential to the future that awaited them all. The Emperor approached Daniel, curiosity and respect mingling in his eyes. You have done what no one else could. How is this possible? Daniel shrugged as if it were the simplest thing in the universe. Sometimes the hardest problems are not solved with power or knowledge, he said. Sometimes all it takes is patience and a voice that remembers the truth. The dragon flexed its wings and looked at Daniel again. A sound came from deep in its chest, almost like a purr, almost like a roar. The message was clear. The bond had been made and something had shifted forever. The healers watching in awe realized that this was more than an awakening. This was a lesson. The creatures of the Empire, even the greatest of them, could be guided by humans, not because humans were stronger or faster or more powerful, but because humans saw what others often missed, the spark of life itself, the memory of being, the voice that could call the lost back home. As the sun finally broke through the clouds above Zaltor, the Empire's city glimmered with golden light, and the dragon stretched its wings fully, casting massive shadows over the crystal floors. For a brief shining moment, hope returned to the Empire, and somewhere deep in the dragon's mind, Daniel's whisper echoed, a promise of loyalty, courage, and the adventures yet to come. The people of Zaltor would never forget the day a human father reminded an ancient beast who it truly was, and in doing so, reminded the galaxy that humanity had a place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as saviors of the impossible. The awakening of the dragon had sent shockwaves through the imperial city. Crowds gathered in the streets watching in awe as the massive creature soared above the spires of crystal, its golden eyes scanning the horizon. The Empire had seen many wonders, but none like this. A being thought lost to time, now alive again, and all because of a human's voice. Inside the palace, the Emperor held council. His advisors were uneasy. It is unnatural, one whispered. A human has awakened the dragon. Who knows what consequences may follow? The Emperor remained silent, staring at the balcony where the dragon had landed gracefully, wings folding like a cathedral roof. Even in its dormant state, the dragon had been the Empire's greatest weapon and symbol of unity. Now it was alive, but no one truly understood why it had fallen asleep in the first place, or why it had responded to a human. Daniel Ward, the human father who had whispered the dragon's name, walked quietly through the corridors. He was tired but calm. His mind was not on glory or reward. It was on the dragon and the questions that haunted him. As he approached the dragon's chamber, a low hum filled the air. The dragon had returned to its crystalline cradle, though not for rest. Its massive head tilted toward Daniel as if seeking counsel. The creature's voice, a deep resonance that shook the air, echoed in Daniel's mind. Why did you call me? Why now? Daniel knelt beside the dragon, placing his hand gently on its scales. Because you were lost, he said softly, and because someone needed to remind you who you are. But there is more, isn't there? You did not sleep because you were tired, you were hiding. The dragon rumbled in response, a sound like distant thunder. Hiding from what? Daniel shook his head. I do not know yet. but I will help you find out." Even as the words left him, a new tension crept through the Empire. News of the dragon's awakening had traveled beyond Zaltor, reaching distant systems where rivals and enemies watched with keen interest. Whispers of humans awakening ancient beings spread like wildfire. Rumors grew. If humans could wake the dragon, what else could they do? On the edges of known space, a fleet of alien warships altered course. Their commanders spoke in low, urgent tones. "The dragon is awake," one said. "If this is true, we cannot allow the humans to gain such influence." Back on Zaltor, Daniel was unaware of the looming danger. For him, the challenge was immediate: understanding the dragon. He had grown up repairing machines, solving problems by listening to them, learning their patterns. The dragon was no different. Its slumber was a puzzle, one that required patience, observation, and trust. Over the following days, Daniel spent hours with the creature. He spoke in soft tones, telling stories of Earth, of human families, of courage and loss. The dragon responded slowly at first, lifting a wing, flicking its tail, and eventually speaking through vibrations and subtle movements that only Daniel seemed to understand. It was learning, and it was remembering. One afternoon, as golden sunlight filtered through the crystal windows, the dragon moved suddenly, knocking over a cluster of energy conduits. Sparks flew, and Daniel ducked instinctively. The creature's eyes glowed brighter than ever. "Danger approaches," it resonated in his mind. Daniel frowned. "Danger? From where?" "From the stars," it replied. "Enemies who wish to see this empire fall. Enemies who fear humans," the warning was clear. The dragon had sensed threats long before the human council could even imagine them, and it was right. Beyond Zaltor, a shadow was moving. Fleets from neighboring systems, jealous of the Empire's power and wary of humans' growing influence, were preparing for war. The Emperor, who had begun to trust Daniel in ways he did not fully understand, approached him privately. "You have formed a bond with the dragon," he said quietly. "It listens to you as it does not to any other. Can it be used as a weapon against our enemies?" Daniel shook his head. "It is not a weapon. It is a being, and it has its own mind. It may fight to protect the Empire, yes, but it will not obey blindly. We must earn its cooperation, not demand it." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Humans are strange creatures. You speak of respect and patience, yet you accomplish what our greatest minds cannot. There is wisdom in your way." Meanwhile, the city began to change. Citizens, inspired by the dragon and by Daniel's courage, started to prepare for challenges they did not yet understand. Human ingenuity combined with alien technology. Streets that had once been purely decorative became fortified. Inventors worked day and night, guided by the lessons Daniel shared. One evening, as Daniel walked through the city square, he noticed a small group of children playing beneath a statue of the dragon. They mimicked its movements, stretching their arms like wings, laughing. One child looked up at him and said, "Will it really protect us, mister?" Daniel smiled. "It will protect us as long as we protect each other," he said, "and as long as we remember who we are." That night, as Daniel slept, the dragon watched over the city from its crystalline perch. Its golden eyes glowed like twin suns in the darkness. It remembered Daniel's voice, and in its own way, it was learning to trust humans, not because it had to, but because it saw their courage, their patience, and their determination. But beyond the light of Zaltor, the shadows grew. A mysterious fleet approached, moving silently between stars. Their commanders had heard rumors of the dragon and the human who had awakened it. They feared that this bond could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Their leader, a tall, armored figure with eyes like molten steel, spoke with cold certainty. "If the humans can awaken the dragon," he said, "then we must strike before their influence spreads. We cannot allow this alliance to form." Back on Zaltor, the dragon stirred in its sleep, sensing the approach of the fleet. Daniel awoke suddenly, feeling a vibration beneath the city. The ground trembled as if warning him. He rushed to the dragon's chamber. The creature's eyes blazed. "They are coming," it rumbled. "They fear what you have done. They fear us." Daniel placed a hand on the dragon's massive claw. "Then we prepare," he said. "We will meet them together." And so the stage was set. The Empire, inspired by the courage of one human father, now had a living symbol of unity and power. The dragon, once lost, had returned. But danger loomed on the horizon. and the human who had whispered its name understood that awakening the dragon was only the first step in a much larger battle. For trust, for survival, and for the future of the galaxy itself. As night fell over Zaltor, the stars above seemed to shine brighter. Perhaps, Daniel thought, the universe had noticed that humans, though small in number, could achieve what even the greatest of civilizations could not, and perhaps with courage, patience, and a voice that spoke the truth, anything, even awakening an ancient dragon, was possible. The warning had come too late for comfort. From the far reaches of space, dark shapes appeared on the sensors of Zaltor's orbital towers. The enemy fleet moved with precision, a coordinated shadow of sleek warships cutting across the starlit void. Their presence was unlike anything the Empire had faced in generations. A silent, deadly promise that danger had finally arrived. Daniel Ward stood on the balcony of the palace, his eyes tracing the distant lights of the approaching fleet. The dragon, perched nearby, shifted its massive wings, each movement sending small tremors through the hall. It had sensed the danger long before the sensors registered it, its instincts sharper than any machine or human mind. "They are fast," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "Faster than any fleet we've ever built," the dragon rumbled softly. "They do not understand the bond we share. That is their weakness, but also their strength. They will strike hard and without mercy." Daniel nodded. "Then we must be ready. Not just with weapons, but with strategy and with courage. They expect us to fear them. We cannot give them that satisfaction." The Emperor entered the balcony, his usual composure strained. "You speak boldly, human," he said, his eyes on the dragon. "I have seen warriors fall before the shadow of such fleets. Why should we believe your words?" Daniel met his gaze calmly. "Because they underestimate us. Humans are small, yes, but we adapt. We fight in ways they do not expect. And we are not alone. This dragon will fight with us, not because we command it, but because it trusts us." A ripple of unease ran through the Emperor's advisors. They had relied on calculations, statistics, and ancient strategies for centuries. Now the future of the Empire rested on one human and a creature that had been dormant for decades. In the city below, preparations began. Engineers worked alongside soldiers, fortifying streets and building energy barriers. Terrans and aliens alike coordinated under Daniel's guidance, sharing knowledge and combining technology in ways the Empire had never attempted before. Small drones buzzed through the air, repairing structures and relaying information. The dragon's presence inspired every citizen. It was a living symbol that fear could be overcome. As night fell, the first ships of the enemy fleet entered Zaltor's orbital perimeter. They moved like predators circling a prey, their weapons glowing with a dangerous red energy. Daniel, accompanied by the dragon, ascended to the palace observation tower. The city beneath them glowed with defensive lights, shimmering like a constellation of hope. The dragon's eyes, golden and alive, scanned the fleet. "They are cautious," it said. "But cautious is only the first stage of attack. They will test our defenses. Then they will strike with full force." Daniel clenched his fists. "Then we must strike first, not with anger, but with precision. If we can show them that we are united and ready, they may hesitate." The Emperor approached. "And if they do not?" Daniel looked out at the fleet. "Then we show them the true strength of those who fight for what is right." The dragon stretched its wings, the sound echoing across the city. "I will follow your lead," it said. "But remember, this battle is not just with ships. It is with courage, trust, and understanding. Those are the weapons they do not have." With the first wave of enemy scouts nearing, Daniel devised a plan. Small fighter drones would lead the fleet into a controlled path, where defensive energy fields could trap and slow them. The dragon, using its vast size and power, would intercept the larger ships, disrupting their formations. Daniel and the Emperor coordinated communication between the city, the palace, and the dragon, ensuring every movement was synchronized. As the first enemy scout ships entered the perimeter, alarms blared across the city. The drones moved with incredible speed, drawing the scouts into a narrow corridor where the energy barriers waited. The dragon unleashed a roar that resonated through the hall and into the ships, its sonic waves knocking the scouts off course. Sparks and explosions lit the darkness of space. Daniel watched carefully, noting every movement. His experience as an engineer allowed him to anticipate failures and redirect forces in real time. The combination of human ingenuity and the dragon's raw power created a defensive pattern that was unpredictable. something the enemy had not planned for. But the enemy was not idle. From the shadows of the larger fleet, a massive cruiser emerged, dwarfing the other ships. Its hull was black as void, absorbing the light around it. Daniel's heart tightened. This ship carried their commander, the one who had ordered the attack. Its presence was a warning. The enemy would not be deterred by tricks or smaller victories. The dragon roared again, flapping its wings with such force that nearby buildings shuddered. "I will confront it," it said. "But we must coordinate. Your role is to guide our forces, human. Without you, strategy fails." Daniel nodded. "Then let's do it together." As the dragon launched into space, its massive wings cutting through the vacuum, it carried Daniel's guidance in its mind. The human had learned to communicate with the creature through more than words: gestures, thought patterns, even small emotional cues. This coordination was unlike anything the enemy had ever seen. The massive cruiser advanced, firing powerful energy beams. The dragon intercepted, twisting and dodging with incredible speed. Each strike of its tail or wing sent shockwaves that disrupted the cruiser's targeting systems. The smaller ships were pushed back, their formations collapsing under the combined might of dragon and city defenses. Daniel directed reinforcements from the city. "Focus on their wings. Slow their movement! Push them into the corridor." His voice, calm but firm, guided the drones and fighter ships like a conductor leading an orchestra. The enemy, skilled and ruthless, struggled against the unpredictable combination of dragon, humans, and alien technology. Despite the chaos, Daniel felt a strange calm. He realized that the dragon was not just a weapon, it was a partner. It thought, adapted, and responded with its own instincts. Their trust in each other was a force stronger than fear or anger. Hours passed, each moment stretching with tension. Explosions lit the sky, but the city's defensive grid held. The dragon returned periodically, striking with precision and disappearing before the enemy could respond effectively. Each time it returned, its eyes found Daniel, as if asking for guidance or confirmation. Finally, the enemy commander, observing the unexpected resistance, made a critical decision. "They are stronger than anticipated," he said. "The human, the dragon, they are a threat beyond calculation. Fall back for now. We will return." The fleet retreated into the shadows of space, leaving the Empire battered but unbroken. Citizens cheered from the streets, soldiers saluted, and Daniel, exhausted, allowed himself a small smile. The dragon landed once more in its crystalline cradle, its golden eyes settling on Daniel. "You have done well," it said. "Together we are stronger than they imagined. But this is only the beginning. The shadows will return." Daniel nodded, understanding the truth in the dragon's words. The first confrontation had been won, but the larger conflict was far from over. The human father who had whispered a name now faced a galaxy that feared what humans and dragons together could achieve. That night, as the city began repairs and civilians tended to minor damages, Daniel walked through the streets, observing the resilience and courage of the people. Terrans, aliens, and citizens of the Empire worked side by side. The dragon's awakening had inspired them not just to fight, but to believe. One young soldier approached Daniel, trembling with excitement. "Sir, how did you know what to do? How could you guide the dragon and the city at the same time?" Daniel smiled gently. "Because I trusted them and they trusted me. Courage and trust are stronger than fear. Remember that." Above, the dragon watched, its golden eyes reflecting the city lights. It had felt the enemy's shadow, experienced the chaos of battle, and yet it had learned to rely on a human's wisdom as much as its own power. In the quiet of the night, Daniel realized that humanity's place in the galaxy was not guaranteed by strength alone. It was earned through understanding, ingenuity, and the courage to face challenges that others could not even imagine. And as the stars glimmered over Zaltor, one thought remained clear: the shadows would return. The next battle would be harder, and the enemy would come with new strategies and greater force. But Daniel, the dragon, and the Empire were ready. They had learned the first lesson of war, that courage, unity, and trust could turn the tide against impossible odds. The galaxy, for the first time, began to notice the quiet power of humans not as conquerors, but as catalysts, as saviors, and as beings capable of changing destinies. And somewhere deep in the dragon's mind, Daniel's whisper echoed once more, a reminder that together they were unstoppable, and that no shadow could linger forever, when hearts and minds worked as one. The victory over the first enemy wave had been celebrated with cautious optimism. The people of Zaltor repaired streets, tended to the wounded, and honored those who had defended the city. Daniel Ward walked among them quietly, observing the resilience that had always defined humanity. He could see it reflected in the faces of the aliens as well, who had never imagined that humans could be such a source of hope. But even as the city recovered, the dragon's eyes never left the sky. Golden and alert, they scanned every movement among the stars. Its senses had not been dulled by the brief peace. On the contrary, it had become more aware, more attuned to the shadows that lurked at the edges of known space. Daniel approached the dragon in its crystalline chamber. "You sense it too," he said softly. The dragon rumbled, a deep vibration that filled the hall. "Yes, the fleet we saw before. They are returning. Stronger, more prepared, and with greater firepower. They have learned from their mistakes. They will come for us not just to fight, but to destroy." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we prepare. We cannot wait for them to strike. This time, we must be ready before they reach us." Over the next several days, the city transformed. Daniel worked alongside engineers, strategists, and soldiers, devising defensive networks that combined alien technology with human ingenuity. Energy shields, automated drones, and mobile platforms were positioned throughout the city. Civilians trained in emergency procedures, ready to assist in ways large and small. The dragon, for its part, patrolled the skies above Zaltor, its massive wings casting shadows over the city like protective banners. Daniel had learned to communicate with it in ways deeper than words. Simple gestures, thought patterns, even shifts in emotion allowed them to coordinate seamlessly. The dragon understood strategy, but it also responded to trust, something that humans and aliens alike struggled to earn. Then one morning, sensors picked up movement. The enemy fleet had returned, and it was larger than before. Hundreds of warships appeared, stretching across the dark expanse of space like a living shadow. The enemy commander, the same who had led the first assault, moved with precision, deploying smaller attack craft ahead of the main force. The Emperor convened the council. "This is no longer a test," he said. "This is a declaration. They intend to destroy us, the city, the dragon, everything. Can we withstand such an attack?" Daniel stood, his eyes firm. "We can. Not because we have the biggest ships or the strongest weapons, but because we fight together. The dragon is not just power, it is wisdom, experience, and courage. And we have those qualities too." The council murmured among themselves, some doubtful, some inspired. The Emperor regarded Daniel with a mixture of admiration and caution. "Then lead," he said. "You and the dragon. Show us the way." As the enemy fleet approached, the first skirmishes began. Scout ships darted forward, testing defenses. The dragon responded immediately, intercepting with precise movements that sent smaller ships spinning into space. Daniel directed defensive grids from the palace, rerouting energy to shield the city while coordinating counterattacks with drones and fighter craft. Despite their preparation, the enemy fleet was relentless. Larger cruisers advanced, firing energy beams that could have torn through buildings if not for the dragon's timely interference. Daniel realized that brute force alone would not be enough. The enemy had learned from their previous mistakes. They were faster, smarter, and more determined. "We need to create a trap," Daniel said, speaking to the dragon. "Draw their largest ships toward the Crystal Canyon. The terrain will slow them down, and the energy barriers can contain them. We'll cut off their escape and force them to fight on our terms." The dragon's eyes glowed brighter. "It is risky. The canyon is narrow. If we miscalculate, we could be trapped as well." Daniel nodded. "I know, but if we wait, they will strike here in the city. This is our best chance to protect the people." With precision, the dragon led the enemy toward the canyon. The smaller ships followed, eager to engage what they thought would be an easy target. Energy barriers rose from the canyon floor, channeling the enemy fleet into a controlled formation. Daniel coordinated every movement, adjusting shields, repositioning drones, and issuing real-time commands that kept the enemy off balance. The first cruiser entered the canyon and found itself trapped, its weapons ineffective against the combined defenses. The dragon swooped down, its massive wings creating shockwaves that destabilized the remaining ships. Sparks and energy bursts lit the narrow canyon as smaller vessels collided or were forced into retreat. But the enemy commander was cunning. From the shadows, a hidden fleet emerged, cutting off the dragon's path back to the city. Daniel realized the trap had been partially anticipated. The dragon's roar echoed through the canyon, a sound that vibrated through the ground and sky alike. "We must act together," the dragon rumbled. "Your strategies guide me, human, but my power will execute them." Daniel focused, issuing commands and anticipating enemy movements. Drones zipped past, striking critical points on the larger ships. The dragon weaved through beams and missiles, its massive claws dismantling weapons with precision. Each strike was calculated, combining instinct and human ingenuity. Despite the chaos, Daniel noticed a pattern in the enemy's movements. They relied on brute force, predictable formations, and fear to control the battle. Humans, he thought, never followed predictable patterns. They adapted, learned, and turned challenges into opportunities. "Now," Daniel whispered to the dragon, "use the canyon walls. Force their fleet into a chain reaction." With a mighty roar, the dragon struck the canyon walls, sending shards of crystal and rock into the enemy fleet. Ships collided and detonated. Energy burst cascading across the battlefield. The enemy was caught off guard, struggling to maintain formation. The smaller drones Daniel commanded moved in quickly, exploiting every opening. From above, the Emperor watched in awe. "I did not believe it possible," he murmured. "A human and a dragon, orchestrating the defense of an entire city." Hours passed in a blur of light and sound. The enemy fleet, weakened and disorganized, began to retreat. Daniel guided the remaining forces, ensuring the dragon and the city were safe. As the last of the warships fled, the dragon landed once more in its crystalline chamber, wings folding with a satisfying thud. "We have won for now," the dragon said, its golden eyes reflecting relief and pride. "But this is not the end. They will return stronger than before." Daniel placed a hand on the dragon's scales. "Then we prepare. We will learn from this battle, improve our defenses, and be ready for them next time. Together we can face anything." The Emperor approached, his expression a mixture of respect and wonder. "You have changed the Empire, human. Your courage, patience, and understanding have saved countless lives. The dragon listens to you, trusts you. That is a power no army can match." Daniel shook his head. "It is not about power alone. It is about trust, unity, and the courage to act when others hesitate. That is what makes us strong." Below, the city began to rebuild. The people, inspired by the battle, worked with renewed determination. They repaired structures, reinforced defenses, and shared knowledge across species. Humans, aliens, and dragons alike learned that cooperation could overcome even the most fearsome enemies. That night, as Daniel walked through the city, he noticed children playing under the newly repaired streets, laughing despite the shadow of war. Soldiers trained, ready for the next challenge, and above, the dragon watched over them, a guardian and symbol of unity. Daniel realized that the first true battle had been won not just by strategy or power, but by the bond between human and dragon, by courage that inspired others, and by the willingness to face impossible odds with hope. But even as the city slept, the stars above Zaltor held secrets. The enemy commander, watching from a distant fleet, had noted every movement, every tactic. He would return, stronger and more prepared, with new strategies and weapons designed to counter even the dragon. Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy had taken notice. Humans, small and underestimated, had changed the balance of power, and the dragon, once thought lost, was now an unstoppable force when guided by courage and understanding. "We have survived this shadow," Daniel whispered to the dragon, "but the next one will be harder, and we will face it together." The dragon's eyes glowed softly, a silent agreement. The bond between them had grown stronger through fire and battle, and Daniel knew that as long as they worked together, the Empire and humanity could withstand any challenge. And so, as the first light of dawn spread across Zaltor, the city stood ready, united and vigilant. The shadows may return, but the human spirit and the dragon's power were stronger than any threat. And in that unity lay a promise. No enemy, no matter how vast or cunning, could break the courage of those who fought together. The stars above Zaltor burned brighter than usual that morning, but not with sunlight alone. Signals rippled through space. The enemy fleet had returned, larger and more formidable than ever. Hundreds of warships, bristling with weapons and shielding, moved in perfect formation, cutting a path of shadow toward the Empire. Their commander, relentless and cunning, had learned from previous defeats and now sought total conquest. Inside the palace, The Emperor stood beside Daniel Ward, the human father whose courage and patience had awakened the dragon. The city below was brimming with life, citizens preparing, rebuilding, and readying defenses. But no preparation could truly match the scale of the threat approaching from beyond the stars. "They are coming with everything," said one advisor, voice trembling. "The entire fleet, the city. We may not survive this," Daniel shook his head. "Survival isn't just about hiding or walls. It's about courage, unity, and using what makes us human, the ability to think, adapt, and trust each other. We have allies beyond imagination, and the dragon will lead us. That is more than any fleet can anticipate." The Emperor studied him, admiration and doubt mingling in his eyes. "You speak as if humanity has fought for centuries among the stars, perhaps you are right." Outside, the dragon stretched its wings across the city. Its golden eyes scanned the horizon, feeling the approach of the enemy. It sensed the danger, the fear, and the cunning of the commanders who thought strategy alone could overcome raw courage and ingenuity. "They underestimate us," the dragon rumbled in Daniel's mind. "Their ships are powerful, but their hearts are not united. We have what they cannot match." Daniel placed a hand on the dragon's massive claw. "Then we show them what that means. Together we face them, not as separate forces, but as one." The city's defenses were now fully prepared. Energy barriers arced across streets and along the canyon paths that surrounded Zaltor. Drones buzzed overhead, and human and alien engineers manned control stations. Fighter ships patrolled the skies, ready to engage any approaching threat. But the dragon was the true beacon of hope, a symbol and force no enemy could ignore. As the first wave of enemy ships approached, the dragon launched into the skies, wings cutting the morning light. Daniel's commands were clear and calm. "Draw them into the canyon. Use the terrain. Protect the city." The enemy advanced confidently, believing their numbers and firepower would overwhelm the defenses. But as they entered the canyon, they found themselves trapped. Energy barriers activated, channeling their movements while drones and fighter ships harried their flanks. The dragon's roar shook the canyon walls, sending smaller ships spiraling into chaos. From the shadows, the enemy commander deployed his largest vessel, a massive warship capable of obliterating entire districts. It fired energy beams that tore into the canyon walls, scattering debris. Daniel's heart raced, but he remained focused. He directed drones and defenses with precision, using knowledge and ingenuity to anticipate every attack. "We must strike together." The dragon resonated. "I will face their largest ship. You guide the defenses in the city. Our trust is our strength," Daniel nodded. "Then let's end this." The dragon soared, its massive claws striking the enemy warship. Sparks flew, shields collapsed, and weapons malfunctioned under the sheer force of the assault. The smaller ships faltered as the dragon unleashed blasts of energy from its body, disrupting formations. Daniel guided the city's defenses to focus fire, using the canyon walls and energy barriers to trap the enemy. The commander, frustrated, deployed hidden attack pods, each armed with deadly precision. But Daniel anticipated the move, using the dragon's guidance and the drones to intercept and neutralize them before they could strike the city. Each enemy tactic was met with an unexpected human solution, a combination of intuition, courage, and adaptability. Hours passed in a blur of light and sound. Explosions illuminated the canyon like lightning storms. Ships collided and were thrown into the void, and the dragon moved with unmatched precision, coordinating with Daniel as if they shared one mind. Finally, the enemy commander, seeing the losses mounting, ordered a retreat. His fleet, battered and scattered, withdrew into the shadows of space, leaving the canyon and city intact. The Emperor watched in awe. "They underestimated what humans and dragons together can achieve," he said softly. Daniel's eyes met the dragon's. "We did it," he whispered. "Yes," the dragon rumbled. "But more importantly, we have shown the galaxy that courage, unity, and trust are stronger than fear." The city erupted in celebration. Citizens poured into the streets, cheering and waving flags. Soldiers saluted, engineers hugged, and children ran through the streets, mimicking the dragon's movements. The Empire had survived a threat that seemed impossible, not because of sheer power alone, but because of strategy, ingenuity, and the bond between a human and an ancient creature. That night, Daniel walked through the city, observing the rebuilding and the laughter that had returned. He paused by a statue of the dragon, Now fully restored, wings spread in a protective stance. Children played around its base, calling it names, laughing, and pretending to fly. A young girl approached him, eyes wide with wonder. "Sir, will it always protect us?" Daniel knelt, smiling gently. "It will protect the people, yes. But remember, it protects those who are brave, who work together, and who never give up. Courage is what makes all of us strong." Above, the dragon watched, its golden eyes reflecting the city lights. It had fought, adapted, and learned. But most importantly, it had formed a bond with humanity that no enemy could break. It had been awakened not just by a name, but by trust, patience, and courage, the very traits that humans carried in abundance. In the palace, the Emperor approached Daniel. "You have done what no one believed possible. You have not only awakened the dragon, but you have united the city, the Empire, and perhaps even the galaxy in a new way. What is your next step?" Daniel looked out at the horizon where stars stretched infinitely, carrying potential for both threats and discovery. "The next step," he said softly, "is to ensure that hope continues. We prepare, we learn, and we teach others that courage and unity are stronger than fear. The galaxy is vast, and we must be ready to face whatever comes next, not with anger, but with wisdom and strength." The dragon lowered its head, golden eyes meeting Daniel's. "Together we are more than legend. We are a promise to the future." And Daniel knew it was true. Humans, small and often underestimated, had changed the course of history, not with power alone, but with courage, ingenuity, and the ability to inspire trust and hope in others. Over the following days, Zaltor became a symbol across the galaxy. News spread of the human who had awakened the Emperor's dragon and led it in battle, of citizens and allies uniting in the face of impossible odds, and of an empire that had learned that strength comes not from domination, but from unity. Daniel continued his work, guiding the dragon, teaching strategy, and helping the empire adapt to new challenges. The people looked to him not just as a hero, but as a reminder that ordinary beings could accomplish extraordinary things when they believed in themselves and in each other. And the dragon, once lost, soared across the skies, a guardian of the city and a symbol of hope. Its roar echoed across mountains and valleys, reminding all who heard it that courage, trust, and determination could awaken the impossible. The stars above Zaltor shone brightly that night, a silent testament to the human spirit, the dragon's power, and the unity that had saved a civilization. Daniel stood atop the palace balcony, hand resting on the dragon's claw, and whispered a promise into the quiet air. "Together, we will face whatever comes next, and nothing will break us." For the first time in centuries, the Empire slept without fear. The enemy fleet had been driven away. The dragon was awake and vigilant, and the people, humans and aliens alike, had discovered the greatest truth of all: that courage, patience, and unity could overcome even the darkest shadows. And somewhere deep in the dragon's mind, Daniel's whisper remained, a reminder of trust, hope, and the promise of a future where humanity, dragons, and the stars themselves could shine together. The galaxy had witnessed a new legacy, one forged not in fear or domination, but in the heart of a human, a dragon, and the courage of a civilization willing to fight for what was right.